week-long series, The Shrinking Middle Class, looks at how the American middle class has been whittled down over the past 40 years. On average, middle-class Americans are earning less money, with their median incomes falling 4.8%. Ellen Scott explains how people are coping.
The U.S. middle class, considered by many to be the core of America's consumer spending economy, has less money to spend these days, according to one of this country's most respected research groups.
But one interesting survey question we had, in addition to asking how much it costs to lead a middle-class lifestyle, we asked, is it harder today than it was 10 years ago to maintain a middle-class lifestyle? And 85% of our respondents said that it's harder today.
From 2000 to 2010, the median household income for the middle tier of the U.S. middle class dropped nearly 5%. The middle tier wasn't the only one that took a hit. Both the U.S. Census Bureau and the Pew Center divide middle-class Americans into 5 different income brackets. Over the past decade, all 5 tiers lost incomes. It's the first time the mean family income for the entire middle class dropped since World War II. It's been forcing lifestyle changes on millions of Americans.
We're being more cost conscious. We're looking for the bargains in the grocery stores and in the department stores. And
have to try to make your dollar go further. And I'm doing this several different ways. 1, try to find the store that has the cheapest prices. 2, doing a lot of online shopping because the price point is lower. And 3, try to look at sales and deals and those kinds of things that you see in your papers, newspapers, magazines, those kinds of things.
If the so-called middle class has less to spend, they're putting less money back into the economy. This is only hurting the economy going forward. During this decade of decline, gas prices have risen. In 2000, the average price at a U.S. pump was $1.70 for a gallon of regular gas. Now it's averaging around $3.50 nationwide. Higher gas prices translate into more expensive groceries, forcing some middle-class Americans to even cut back on food.
I go to school for graphic design, so there's a lot you have to spend for that. I think food kind of comes last.
Despite all these setbacks, the Pew Center says most Americans remain optimistic.
When we ask them about the future, people are quite optimistic, and they still see themselves as, most still see themselves as being upwardly mobile, and they feel like their standard of living will eventually exceed that of their parents. So
Ellen Scott, CCTV.
For more on the middle class, we're joined by 2 Marks, Mark Levine, Pacifica Radio Host, and Mark Lane of inElephant Strategies. Both gentlemen, Mark and Mark, thank you very much. Let's start with you, Mark Levine. The middle class, what is it exactly?
I would argue the middle class is where the vast majority of American people lie. It's people who are working, trying hard to make a living. It's not the people who run companies so much as the people who are working for those companies or maybe have a small business themselves.
Has the middle class changed, you think, over the past decade? I mean, we talked about a little bit, mentioned about working class, but I've heard a lot of experts say the working and the middle class have morphed more so in the past few years.
I don't think so. The working class is the middle class. I mean, traditionally we've discerned between the upper, the middle, and the lower middle class. It may be that there's been some shifting within that. But the middle class, if it's changed, it's because, in the words of Vice President Biden, they've been hammered for the last 4 years, and it's time that they've had some opportunities for themselves.
When we say hammered and we talk about opportunities, what policies going forward, regardless whether it's a Romney administration or a Obama administration, what are the policies going forward that you would say that would really help folks stay in that class and also folks who are not in that class move up into it?
Well, I hope Mark agrees with me, but the real issue for the middle class are threefold: jobs, jobs, and jobs. The middle class needs jobs. Jobs for everyone will create economic expansion. It will benefit 100% of Americans, not a small slice of Americans. There are a couple things that Governor Romney wants to do. Very briefly, energy independence will create jobs both in the energy sector and in the manufacturing sector. The second thing he'll do is tax reductions for the middle class. And the third thing he will do is the opportunity to help small business and promote small business, which is the economic job engine for the American economy.
Mark? First of all, it's not just jobs, it's which jobs. One of the things Mitt Romney is famous for, all you have to do is read his op-ed in the New York Times, the one entitled "Let Detroit Go Bankrupt," is he made it clear he wanted union workers fired. He wants to take away health care from people. He wants to lower their wages, and frankly, he's been a big one in outsourcing jobs to China. I mean, Mitt Romney, through Bain Capital, has been taking jobs from the American shores to Chinese shores and Mexico and Thailand and things like that. So it's not just jobs, but jobs here at home and good paying jobs. One of the reasons the middle class has been hammered.
Let me just stop you, because when we talk about jobs and we talk about the middle class, I want a specific number. What kind of job and what kind of pay is equivalent to the American middle class?
Well,
in your mind?
I would say you have to be outside of poverty. You can't be earning minimum wage. You should be earning at least, I think, $30,000, something like that, all the way up to maybe $100,000, something like that.
You're saying between $30,000 and $100,000, that is the middle class. Would you,
maybe a little bit higher.
Would you agree?
Depending on where you are, 30,000 may be middle class. It certainly would not be in the Washington, D.C. area where we're broadcasting from. 100,000 doesn't even begin to touch the ceiling of the middle class. You have to be well into the 200,000 to get out of the middle class. Probably 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 for a family of four to be outside the middle class in the Washington, D.C. area.
It does
New York
depend on
area,
where you live.
San Francisco area.
Okay, so the hot topic, and I think there's plenty in this newsroom and viewers watching, at least in America, that look at the tax code and say, hey, it is far too complicated. Both administrations, potentially Romney and Obama, have said they would simplify the tax code. What do they mean about simplifying? These deductions, a lot of them do affect the middle class. Explain a little bit. Help us understand.
Mitt Romney wants to do is he wants to end a lot of the deductions for the middle class, the mortgage interest deduction, the charitable deduction, and in order to give a massive tax cut to the wealthy.
Okay,
now,
but what about Obama?
Well, President Obama wants to continue the payroll tax cut. So that's $2,000, $3,000 for every middle class family right there and then. He wants to maintain these deductions that they have for home mortgage interest and charitable deduction. To be fair, Obama has laid out his policy. Romney hasn't. So to some audiences, he says he doesn't want to harm the middle class. And then, of course, he goes in secret and says that half of America is moochers. So Romney plays both sides.
I don't want to get too political here. I just want to better understand both sides' position and how that really affects the middle class,
Right.
Mark.
And Obama would make the wealthy pay more.
Let me
no
say,
question about that.
Mark knows full well that Mitt Romney has never and probably will never call for reduction of the home mortgage interest deduction. That's just poppycock or malarkey, in the words of Joe Biden. And President Obama has already indicated that he wants to scrap the payroll tax cut for next year, and in its place, perhaps put a reduction in rates. So you're already talking about the president backing off the programs that haven't worked.
We're almost out of time. One quick point from each of you on what you would change to help the middle class. We'll start with you, Mark.
I would get rid of rich man's rules. Mitt Romney only had to pay 10% in taxes. Middle class pays much more. Instead of having the rich pay a lower tax rate than the middle class, I would raise taxes on the rich.
First of all, Mitt Romney pays 15% in taxes, the amount required under the law. Look, we need energy independence that creates jobs both in energy creation and in manufacturing, because manufacturers need cheap, unlimited, dependable sources of energy. The second thing you do is you support small business, which is the job engine of the United States economy.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrated is the American middle class? And maybe you guys might actually agree on this one. 10 being very, very upset with the system.
I would say it's 8 or 9, and I think if you look at the polls, you'll see that 2/3 of Americans says Obama looks out for the middle class. The majority says Obama.
But I don't want to listen. I want to know, why do they feel that way? Is it the economy? Is it the taxes?
I think they're getting squeezed. There was a time when the economy depended on the middle class in America, the 1950s and 1990s. Now you have very wealthy businessmen like Mitt Romney looking to foreign sources of cheap labor.
You really,
I think the middle class is frustrated because of jobs. There's a great number of middle class people. We all know somebody on our block or in our family or neighbor who lives next door to us that is out of work and has been out of work for over a year, can't find a job. They're in danger of losing their house. They can't provide for their family. The middle class is very frustrated that the economy is not growing and providing the kind of job opportunities that we need in this country.
Except that it is growing. We have the best economy in the world right now, better than Europe, better than even China, and it's largely due to President Obama's policies.
But we have no jobs, and that's the issue.
Mark, both of you, thank you. Much more to come.